Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I am your supervisor, Manu Koenig. And it's clear by the number of people in this room that this is an important topic to the entire neighborhood. And I want to thank everyone who helped get the word out about this meeting, and thank all of you for your passion for our community and for coming out tonight. I think we have exactly 3 chairs left. If anyone needs a more comfortable seat, we're happy to put those out. If you're standing in the back, we do have a few more chairs here, as well as a few more seats up front. So go ahead and grab a seat. I think it's probably going to be a long meeting. Oh, we do have, it sounds like we've got more chairs we can pull out, so don't be bashful. All right, well, we're here tonight to obviously talk about Thurber Lane and Soquel Drive, the affordable housing project that's been proposed for this lovely site that you all drive by, I think, every day. That is currently a nice pumpkin patch. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about the overview of the project that's been proposed, the current timeline, background on how we got to this place, why we're looking at a project that, I mean, honestly, this is the largest project proposed in the unincorporated area of Santa Cruz County. So just actually a little background on that. There are 4 cities, incorporated cities within Santa Cruz County, and then there's the unincorporated area. So if you live in a city, you have a city council. If you're in the unincorporated area, which we're in here, you only have your county supervisor. That's why I'm the one here. So we'll talk about how we got here, the background of the housing crisis, state laws, the county housing element, why a project is being proposed specifically here at this site, why not downtown Santa Cruz or Capitola, the resources available at this site in terms of traffic, water, sewer, fire, kind of what to expect next, and then hopefully there's plenty of time for questions. Is that better? Sorry, all right, I'll go as loud as possible. Plenty of time for your questions and suggestions at the end, because that is why we're here, is to make this project the best it can possibly be. All right, so the site itself is 6.26 acres. The zoning is community commercial and residential flex. You can see the community commercial is the area down there along the Soquel Drive Thurber intersection, that darker brown, and then residential flex is our highest density residential zoning, and it is the upper part of the lot. The total allowable acres in both residential flex and actually commercial zoning, if there's you consider that mixed use when you put housing in commercial areas, and you can do 45 units per acre. And so this site is actually eligible for 281 units. If a developer were to take advantage of state density bonus laws to the maximum amount, which allows for an 80% bonus above that 281, they could theoretically get up to 505 units on this site.
Is that taking up Winkle Farm Park?
Sorry, I'm going to take questions at the end, sir, just to maintain decorum. I'll try to get this through as quickly as possible. When we take questions at the end, happy to form a queue, and I'll give you the mic. It is not taking up Winkle Farm Park. You can see Winkle Farm Park off there to the upper right. It is borders this property, and kind of right where the tree line, and there is this urban arroyo that goes down the middle of the site that is roughly 2 acres. Project's proposal includes 181 residential units, as well as 2 managers units for a total of 183 actually. Includes 5 total buildings, 1 3-story building, 2 4-story buildings, 2 5-story buildings, which have some renderings there on the right. The project is proposed to be 100% affordable. I can get into the complexity of what exactly that means. And 273 parking spaces, or approximately 1.5 per unit. The affordability calculations are a little bit complex. Basically, the project would be divided into 4 different income levels, all based on the area median income, which is about $105,000 per household is the area median income. The project would provide affordable units to people at 70% of the area median income, 60%, 50%, and 30%. And then within those income levels, to be considered affordable, the unit has to cost no more than 30% of someone's gross income. And so that's how you end up with the rental amounts that you see here at the bottom, which would range from 1,000 for a 1-bedroom for the lowest income level, all the way up to 3,000 for a 3-bedroom at the highest income level. So the project timeline so far, we actually do have more people than when this was first aired at a community meeting back in April 29th. The developer held a community meeting back then at the Congregational Church in Soquel. Saw many of you there. The first formal plan submission to the county was actually very recent. It was August 26th. And there was a few design changes between April and August. Then I started to hear from you at my office hours in September, started sending out communications September 13th to the Thurber-Winkle-Benson neighborhood. And then October 3rd to pretty much every email that I have in my newsletter list, about 14,000 people. And here we are October 10th at a community meeting. The project has, as I mentioned, submitted a formal application August 26th. At this point in time, it's deemed incomplete. There's a number of questions that the county has about various elements. The biotic report is still under review. We're still determining whether additional environmental analysis, CEQA, California Environmental Quality Analysis, would be necessary. And the traffic study has not yet been submitted. So still really at the earlier stages of this submission. The sort of fastest possible timeline would probably be that an application was completed by the end of this year, and that a planning commission hearing was held early next year. Would be a public hearing, and that, if everything lines up, it could certainly extend past that later into next year that we reach these timelines. Some of the updates between the April 29th proposal and the August 30th actual submission is that the height was reduced by a story along Soquel Drive, Thurber Lane. So this is looking, if we're standing on Thurber, looking at the project sort of out, and the corner is here on my right-hand side, and on this view, where Soquel Drive comes through. So the project was reduced in height a story there. Originally it was 5 stories right at the corner of Thurber and Soquel. The developer proposed 4 stories with a step down to 3 stories at the end of the building to try to make it meet the existing neighborhood a little bit better. A commercial component was also included at the corner. You can see that there at the corner of Thurber and Soquel. That's a proposed 1,800 square foot commercial space. That could be anything from a bakery to honestly whoever wants to ultimately rent the space. Additionally, we're looking at putting in a walking trail connection to Winkle Park. The applicant and the county were talking about how we could potentially do this, who would ultimately manage this area, whether it's the county or the development itself. There are still 5-story buildings, as I mentioned, but they've been pushed more towards the internal part of the site so that they're not up against any particular existing buildings. They're also separated by parking lots from the edge of the site, again, to avoid excessive shadows or impact. So those are some of the changes that we've seen so far. I've heard some snickers at adding a commercial space and walking path, big deal. Why bother trying to integrate this project into the neighborhood? Well, I could say, look down the street. We've got a 9-acre affordable housing project there, and it's fenced off. If you're a member of the community, you don't get to interact with that 9 acres of Soquel at all. And so I would suggest that's not a particularly good way to have a project integrated into the neighborhood. So we can definitely do better than that. All right, so why are we even talking about projects of this size? Well, first of all, let's just review some of the basic numbers. You can't actually make this stuff up. I'm sure the idea of $3,000 a month for a 3-bedroom sounds high. Reality is the average rent in our community is $4,000 for a 2-bedroom. Santa Cruz County has been named the least affordable housing market in the entire country 2 years in a row now. We were just ahead of San Francisco a couple of years ago, and now we're a lot ahead of San Francisco. That means that 70% of renters spend more than 30% of their gross income on rent. That's gross income compared to take-home pay. That's really more like they're spending more than half of all their take-home pay on rent. The average home price in this neighborhood is $1.3 million. I'm sure if you just moved in the neighborhood, you feel that. And with a 20% down payment at today's interest rates, it would take a household income of over $400,000 to afford an average priced home in our community. Santa Cruz, the result of this is really a dwindling workforce. I can tell you in the county, this is the biggest problem facing your local government. It means less firefighters, it means less nurses, it means we can't fill positions in behavioral health, it means we can't even fill positions in our planning department to get even your basic home remodels approved fast enough. Santa Cruz is the fastest aging county in the entire state. We're aging twice as fast as the state average. So, if we don't add some housing, there's literally not going to be people to keep the town running. Not going to be people to keep the water sewer system running, let alone doctors to see and take care of you. So the state's response to this housing crisis, which is really statewide, we are the worst, but statewide problem, has been law after law after law after law after law to streamline housing production. Now the governor here just the end of last month, you can see him standing with a sign that says more housing, more accountability. What more accountability means is less local control. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And so that's basically what, the reason we don't have a whole lot of housing is because meetings like this have happened over the last 40 years. And every time, your elected official has walked out of this meeting, as I would too here tonight, and said, I am going to do whatever I can to respect the community's wishes and make the project more in line with what they want. And that meant smaller projects, or less projects, or no project at all. And that's why we got here today, and why the state's response has been, okay, it's not going to be your job anymore. We're going to take control of this situation and basically force regions to accept this and build this housing. And so they've done that in a number of ways. SB 7, for example, basically requires regions to plan for more housing, to zone for it, and basically eliminates local government's ability to appeal those numbers. The AB 3194 says that if a project is proposed that meets the local zoning, then it must be built, basically. We can't find one reason or another in local government not to approve the project. And then projects like, or bills like SB 35 basically, again, reduce the power of local jurisdictions to delay housing development through any discretionary review process. So, I mean, the result of this is the state is acting as our housing coach, referee, and scorekeeper all in one.
And enforcer.
And enforcer, yeah, that's absolutely right. Of course, then this even goes to basically throwing our local zoning code and build out the window. So this project is 5 stories. The height limit that the Board of Supervisors approved just a couple of years ago was 3 stories. It doesn't matter because state law says that affordable projects like this can have waivers and concessions, which means basically that they can be excused from one law or another within the code. So as far as we can tell, as they're going through the application and submitted, some of the waivers and concessions this project is considering is one, a reduction in the total amount of commercial space that would be required along Soquel Drive there with our commercial zoning, an increase in height. Actually, typically we would want to see at least 75% of the Zone 4 units actually built. And as I mentioned, that's actually 281 units of this site. This site is only building 64% of the total units. We're giving them a waiver to build actually less units in this case because they're affordable. And then some of the tandem parking elements also require a waiver.
What is tandem parking?
Tandem parking is where basically one car is parked behind another. So the only way you can get the car out in front is if you move the car in the back. So it's 2 parking spaces, but in less total area. And so no, it's not illegal if you get a waiver or under certain affordability standards.
Wait for the neighbor to finish the.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying not to answer questions from the audience just to get through this. So many of you said, let's just tell the state to pound sand. No way, we're not doing it. Sorry. Well, our City of Santa Cruz friends who are a little bit ahead of us on this journey have tried that. They tried that with the 831 Water Street project. This is at Water Street and North Branch of 40. On October 2021, the Santa Cruz City Council rejected this project. They said, we don't like it. They found a couple of reasons having to do with the stability of the slope, with the way the low-income units were distributed through these actually 2 buildings here. So they denied it. A group called YIMBY threatened to sue them under state housing laws. Furthermore, the project reapplied under SB 35. That's the streamlining provision in state code, which basically reduces the amount of consideration that the council could give it. And so they ended up approving it just 2 months later. Let's talk a little bit about why here, the RENA allocations, how the zoning map is developed. So a lot of you have reached out and said, we need housing in our community, but by all means, it's the wrong place. Put it downtown, put it in Santa Cruz, Capitola, Watsonville. The reality is the state has said all the above. Each one of us in a separate jurisdiction, the cities and the unincorporated county, we've all received allocations to plan for new housing in the thousands. City of Scotts Valley, 1,220 units they had to plan for. City of Santa Cruz, 3,736. Unincorporated Santa Cruz County, 4,634. City of Capitola, 1,336, which is significant because they only have about 10,000 housing units there today. City of Watsonville, 2,053 units. And then when we talk about the unincorporated county, our geography is pretty challenging. We've got a lot of mountains and trees out there, and then we've got the coast. We're sandwiched in between the two. And so what you see on this map, we have what's called the urban services line in the unincorporated area. It's that blue line, and that's basically where sewer is available. There's no sewer line up the San Lorenzo Valley. It's pretty problematic. Everyone's on septic and wells, and the two next to each other, not a good mix. That's why it's so darn expensive to build in the unincorporated area today out in the mountains. So when we had to look for a place to put 4,634 units, we said it should probably be within the urban area, and it can't be the cities because they have their own number, and so we're really limited to this colored area here, Live Oak, Soquel, and Aptos. Not a large area. One of you reached out and said, well, actually there's more than 4,634 units in your plan. It's more like 5,500, 6,000. I think it's 5,500. That's because we were required, again, by the state to plan for a buffer of 20%. So add, times 4,634 by 1.2, 5,500. And the fun part about working with the state is that while we submitted our housing plan on time, and they said, oh, we got to think about this. We're going to go over it for a few months. So, while we're thinking about it, you're out of compliance. So when we're out of compliance, because we don't have an approved housing element, the builder's remedy kicks in. And the builder's remedy means you can do whatever the hell you want. So that didn't put us in a good place either.
Could you say that slower, please?
Sure. So when you don't have an approved housing element that incorporates all of these units that I'm talking about, then the remedy for that is called the builder's remedy. That's sort of the stick that the state carries. And that basically means that people can submit, I know it sounds like we don't have a whole lot of rules, but talk about no rules when builder's remedy is in effect. I think Santa Monica went through this, and while they were in builder's remedy, they had something like 4,000 units proposed, basically overnight.
This is when we're not in compliance.
When we're not in compliance. So you really want to be in compliance, you really have to plan for these units. And Another question that's come my way is, well, what other projects are going on in the area? There are a number, come back to this slide, but there is one on Paul Sweet Road over by Dominican Hospital. This is 84 units on half an acre, and that is a builder's remedy project. It was submitted while we were out of compliance, and so that's a lot more units per acre than what we're seeing, right? I mean, that is 168 units per acre. So a lot of you have said, how could you let our state representatives do this? I just want to remind you, your state representatives work directly for you. They don't work for you through me. They work for you. John Laird, your state senator, and Don Addis, your state assembly member, are both on the ballot. If you don't like this, tell them. I certainly will communicate, what's happened here, one way or another. I'll get into that more, but again, they work directly for you too. And so you should let them know how you feel. What do I think our state representatives will do? Well, first of all, keep in mind that to change any state law, takes being passed in the Assembly. They're currently just finished this legislative year. It would have to be passed next year, and that means any change probably wouldn't go into effect until January 2026. So it's extremely unlikely that any state law could be changed that would change the situation that we're talking about here. And I mean, do you guys really think they didn't have some idea of what they were doing? Of course, they knew that this would be the impact.
Got to send a message.
I mean, exactly. Reach out to them, send a message. But I doubt, or it seems highly unlikely to me that things would be, state law would be changed so quickly because of this project. What I certainly will communicate, advocate, and I think is possible, because I've started to hear some feedback from Senator Laird and Assemblywoman Addis. Yeah, maybe this is a little extreme. And I think what they might do is say, well, if a community is actually meeting its housing goals, for perspective, in the last 8-year planning cycle, we got to about 80% of our goal. A lot of that with ADUs, actually. So ADUs are a big factor in solving this, and I do think there are ways to build housing that is gentler, more incremental, and ultimately led by the people who live in our community. And I'll continue to champion those. But anyway, we as a Santa Cruz County met 80% of our last housing goal. The city of Santa Cruz actually met theirs with all that development that you hear about downtown. And so they, in particular, are interested in at least some kind of carrot for doing the right thing, for doing what the state asks. Right now it's all sticks. And so I think we could ultimately see some carrots in state, more sticks too, probably, but ultimately some carrots in our state legislation that says, if you if you've met your goals, you're not going to be kicked right into builder's remedy. Maybe your planning cycle for housing goes from 8 years to 10 years. Maybe we can actually self-certify our housing element rather than waiting for the state to certify it. Or maybe we could actually get a lower housing allocation in the next cycle. Those are all things that I'll be proposing to our state legislators and where the discussion could go in a positive direction. But unfortunately, I doubt they'd influence this particular project. Okay, so let's get into some of the, I'm getting there, more than halfway through, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. Let's get into the sort of resource allocation in the area. Now, I know traffic is terrible here. I absolutely avoid driving on Soquel Drive anytime between noon and 6 p.m. Now, of course, it's actually worse right now because we're in the process of making it better. And I know that's hard to believe, but we're basically doing everything we possibly can on the major routes. So Highway 1, I mean, Santa Cruz actually got one of the largest awards of state money for transportation in recent years. Little Santa Cruz County, we are 0.5% of the statewide population, got one of the largest state transportation grants to fix Highway 1 and Soquel Drive at the same time. And that's the construction you're seeing out there. Yes, I know fix is a relative term. Do as much as we could. And that means building an auxiliary lane on Highway 1 so that you'll be able to get on at the Soquel Drive exit and go all the way to 41st without ever exiting. You won't have to merge with existing traffic. And that project is being extended, as of course you've seen now, phase 2 down to State Park Drive is underway and will be extended down to Freedom Boulevard, we hope. We're currently applying for the money to build that segment through APDOS. At the same time, we're doing the work on Soquel Drive. Most of the impact you've seen right now is from the sidewalk gap closures. So we just had a lot of holes in the sidewalk network. Those are being filled in. Sidewalks are extremely expensive, so we're happy for the state assistance. They're like $1 million a mile. And we're also putting in buffered protected bike lanes, green bike lanes on Soquel Drive to try to make it safer for people to bike, as safe as possible. Wherever possible, we're doing fully protected with a barrier, the posts, and where the widths are just under regulation, we just have sort of a foot or two of extra striping. We've also invested heavily in improving the bus network, and Soquel Drive is actually the best bus line in the county. It's most heavily used after the routes up to UCSC, and so that's why we have we're expanding to 15-minute service on Soquel Drive. Now, one thing that I do truly believe will make a difference through this area is the timed lights. We have a lot of lights really close together. Thurber, Winkle, Dover, Madison, and then you're at 41st. We're also looking at putting a right-hand turn lane from Soquel onto 41st. Yeah, and the last stop sign on Soquel Drive at Robertson Road is being replaced with a stop light so that can also be timed. And they'll all be actually know what the other one's doing so they can all turn green at the same time and traffic can actually move.
Well, we can build another project.
So hopefully all these will make some difference. We are really doing everything we possibly can, at least on Soquel and the highway, and we'd love to hear any suggestions for Thurber as well. Okay, so let's talk about water.
Yeah, there you go.
Everyone's concerned about water.
Where it's coming from.
We are in an overdrafted basin. That's pretty much as long as I've been working in local government and on these kinds of issues, we've been working to solve this problem. So over 12 years now. And we're actually there. This is a project across the street, the Advanced Water Purification Center, or Pure Water Soquel. They will be taking the water we used to treat twice and pump out to the ocean. Instead of sending it out to the ocean, it's going under Soquel Avenue. That's a lot of the construction that you've seen over the recent years, and being pumped to this site at Chanticleer, where it's treated a number of times again. Same technology actually that's used for desalination is used on this. It's cheaper to do it over the recycled water because there's just less salt in it. Once it's purified, it will be put into the aquifers, so diluted with existing water, and then can ultimately be drawn out by Soquel Creek Water District for customers in the future. That will produce 1.3 million gallons a day of water. For perspective, the project we're talking about will probably use about 9,000 gallons a day of water.
How does that help with the project, though?
Well, right now,
I'm trying to make a connection.
yes. Well, right now, our basin, basically with all the actions we've taken over recent years, yes, we are a critically overdrafted basin, but we've stabilized. So the water level is not continuing to drop. We're stable. So we expect that once we start putting 1.3 million gallons a day of water into the basin, we might actually start to increase the water level. I think it's a pretty good bet that we'll increase the water level, because even with these kinds of projects, we're talking about 9,000 more gallons a day versus 1.3 million gallons going into the ground. And wait, there's more. Because when we had this discussion about water 10 years ago, the community said, first of all, we don't want desal, we'd rather see recycled water. That's what's happening. And furthermore, what about all that good water that flows out to the ocean in the winter when we have all that darn rain? Well, guess what? We're going to pump it into the aquifer too. Santa Cruz Water Department and Soquel Creek, which basically relies all on surface water, the San Lorenzo and North Coast streams, has formed an agreement, interties everything with Soquel Creek Water District, which is all wells, pumps it all out of the ground, which is why we have a critically overdrafted basin here. They're now working together, and they're going to take the excess water in the winter and pump it into the ground for storage and use later. And they are probably a year away from turning that on to production levels. They've done all the tests. We've confirmed that the basin actually holds water when we pump water into it, that they can get it out effectively. And so between these two efforts, there is a good reason to believe we'll have a stable water source going forward. We are also requiring more monitoring of large wells throughout the county, so that we know, particularly some of the agriculture near the coast has aggravated this problem, and so we'll be keeping a closer eye on that. Let's talk about fire safety. A lot of you have raised the issue that just capacity for central fire, or whether or not fire is an issue in this area, and yeah, it is. Especially up here, Soquel Gardens, you're in the yellow area, moderate fire hazard severity zone. Down on the flat, it's not. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of area in our county that is completely out of the fire hazard severity zones. We actually have the highest rate of building in the wildland-urban interface of any county in the state. So yes, there's a lot of fire risk out there, but this site that we're talking about is outside of it. Again, that's why sites like these in the urban area are the ones where we're saying, hey, if we have to put 4,634 units in this county, we should probably put them outside of severe fire zones. It was asked, well, do we have enough capacity if Measure R fails and Central Fire doesn't get the money that they're asking for? Would this project be denied? No. Measure R is about resilience for Central Fire. It's about getting Soquel Station out of the floodplain so that they're capable of responding during disasters rather than being stuck in the station. It's about having larger stations to carry more, to hold more modern trucks. They do have enough equipment now, ladder trucks, to be able to respond to a fire in a 5-story building. Another question that came up is, will there be on-site security? I do not have a firm answer on that yet, but I imagine that the 2 on-site managers will be considered the frontline defense there. And of course, our sheriff's department. The sheriff's center is right across the highway. A couple last words, and then I'll start taking questions. Guys, I know you probably can't believe this, but it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. This, on the left, is the first rendering I've seen of the 41st and Soquel project. 5 stories above parking, so 6 stories in total. On 2.7 acres, 289 units. That's 107 units per acre. This project is 28.7 units per acre. They're not building over the green space. They could. They could pipe that whole green space just as it's piped below Soquel Drive and up by Benson. Could pipe it, just build right over it. Also, I would venture a guess, the reason we're seeing a project of this size on this site has as much to do about economics, right? So really, right, all we're seeing right now proposed in our county are 100% affordable housing projects and townhome developments. And that's just because of the economics. The kind of construction you see here on the left is actually pretty expensive, with a podium where you have to build a big concrete structure, and then you start building the plywood on top of that. That's expensive, and so this product really avoids building a podium because of this unit count. They're doing tuck under parking, which is cheaper, and a lot of surface parking. 41st and Soquel, it'll all be under the building. So this is kind of actually an economic sweet spot that's getting us to this point. And let's just say, in theory, that we could stop the project. I don't see a way to do that. Let's just say we could. 10 years from now, it would come back a lot bigger. Rooms were packed just like this to oppose the Nissan dealership. I think probably some people might wish the Nissan dealership went in.
That would be bad.
And so, in any case, the Nissan dealership failed on its own, and here we are today. But in any case, just trying to provide a little perspective. Again, 500, when I say 500 plus units that could potentially go on this site. All right, so again, the current application has been deemed incomplete. We're still waiting for the traffic impact analysis. We're still waiting for a review of the biotic report, for the CEQA analysis, that's the Environmental Quality Act analysis. And we don't expect a complete application until at least the end of the year, possibly later. Once we have a complete application, this will go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. And then if it's appealed, it would go to the Board of Supervisors, where I would vote on. Now even that, you say, well, it's not automatically go to the Board of Supervisors. 41st and Soquel is applying under a state law, ministerial approval process. Ministerial means no discretionary review required. Not the Planning Commission, not the Board of Supervisors. If it meets the rules, it shall be approved. So,
Point of heavy.
well, there is a point in having this meeting, and we're actually getting to the point, which is, well, first of all, I'll say my commitment was just to hear any feedback you have on ways to make this project better. Now, I just want to say, we're getting to questions, and because we're going to be forming a queue for questions, think about getting up. We don't have one mic, so I can't run around and hand this to you guys. My commitments to you are to do whatever is possible to improve this project. To communicate with you every time there are any updates that we receive about the project. To use any park impact fees that we have directly in this area with a focus on Winkle Park. To design and propose a permanent parking program for Live Oak, because I know that parking overflow is an issue, and to request that our state representatives to improve our housing laws. And with that, I'm open to any questions, suggestions. Again, we only have one mic, and so and we have a full room, and everyone wants to hear your interesting questions. So I'm going to ask that you line up if you have a question. We are going to time you. I'm going to ask that you make it more of a question or suggestion than a statement. And I think we're going to keep it to 2 minutes maximum, and of course we appreciate anything shorter than that. If we don't get to your question or suggestion tonight, you can reach out to my office, first.district at santacruzcountyca.gov. We have 2 analysts from my office here tonight, Christina. Thank you. Hi, Christina. And Jamie. And we'll start a timer in 2 minutes, and now can I hand our mic to our first public question?
Thank you, Supervisor. My name is Jeffrey Ellis. My particular concern is fire safety in Santa Cruz Gardens. And my particular worry is if we had to evacuate our neighborhood quickly, adding another 200 or so cars down on Thurber Lane could be a difference between life and death for some of us if 200 more cars were added down on Thurber Lane. So my request is no parking. No tenant parking. They did this in Santa Cruz on a development on Mission Street, and they will attract the right kinds of tenants who will use the bus on a major bus line on Soquel, or bicycle, etc. So that's my proposed improvement for this project.
Thank you. I'll comment briefly on that. First of all, of course, the fire station is on Thurber Drive today, Thurber Lane, I'm sorry. And they have the keys to open the gate at Winkle, where it connects to the top of Benson, and then again and some turns, and it comes down.
We know that.
I know you know that, but just to point it out, as far as parking goes, really it's probably determined more by economics than anything else. So when applying to build a project and when looking for funding, financing from a bank to build the project, the developer's going to have to, the bank is going to have to believe that they'll be able to rent the units out and not leave them hanging on the loan. And so basically, depending on the area, kind of depends on the parking ratio, really more than any law we have at this point because of those waivers and concessions. Project you mentioned over on Mission Drive, a little bit denser area. The one on the food, I think they're talking about the food bin project that has really no parking included and expects everyone to take the bus. This is a different part of town. Probably banks would look at it a little bit differently, not quite as walkable of an area. And also it's possible that the food bin project, precisely because of that reason, cannot get a loan to build it.
Yep, they're not going.
So.
Thank you. So I have the same concern, fire safety and evacuation specifically, as Jeffrey mentioned. And, okay, so fire safety or getting out of Thurber Lane for all of us that want to evacuate if we need to, it's going to be really hard with this big housing community. So I'm proposing is maybe not having them be able to access Thurber Lane and having a separate access through Soquel Drive. If we have to do that, coming in and out of Thurber Lane is going to be a cluster. Think of the rest of what I'm going to say. So that would be my suggestion, and that's really all I have to say. So.
Thank you. Great suggestion. I pulled up this area map here so we can see the current entries and exits to the project. As you can see, there are 2 on Soquel Drive currently planned and 1 at the top of the project there going on to Thurber Lane. And certainly as we look at the traffic study and circulation, we'll look at any opportunities to improve flow.
Thank you. I have heard from what I thought was a pretty reliable source that a road was going to be put in Winkle Park that would go from the culvert, from the cul-de-sac and pretty much along where the sidewalk is now, so that there would be a service road going to the project. And so I would love to hear that that's not true.
That's not true. I have not seen that plan. We'd have to sit down with Parks and see if they have any ideas on at least being able to circulate their own work vehicles within there, but certainly no plans for a public road connecting through Winkle Park right now.
My name's Dan Rutan, and my wife and I live on Thurber Lane, about four houses back from the stop sign before I go to school. So think about the traffic in that respect. I have a couple of questions here very quickly. One, in your presentation, you talked about to see if the CEQA analysis was required. Isn't the CEQA necessary to really determine the environmental impact on that whole area? I mean, it is a riparian corridor, so if you could address that in a minute, I'd appreciate that. Another concern I have is simply one of design. If we can't keep this project from happening, why can't we at least have a design that's more aesthetically appealing? This looks like downtown New York City. And third, the impact on the school. Obviously, traffic would be a huge problem getting children up to school because it already is a problem. But now we're adding another, 100 kids, perhaps, maybe more. And this school, I think, is probably maxed out as far as its population is now. I don't know, our granddaughter's no longer in school here. But is there room for another 100 students that can be accommodated, as well as the teaching staff and everything else required? So, thank you.
School is only half full.
Scott Turnbull, your superintendent for Soquel Union back there. The school's only half full. I'm sure we'd love to see more students because that does impact the school's funding significantly. And I'm sorry, your other question or comment was about the CEQA analysis. So the reason one potentially might not be required is that when we did the sustainability update, we actually looked specifically at this site and the riparian area here, and we did some analysis of whether or not it should be left open or piped. And so it's possible that the project could piggyback on the analysis that was already done. They will still have to do the biotic report and other elements. It is also possible that they'll need to do a new independent super review. So we're just trying to figure out the details there right now. Thanks. I'm sorry. In design, I will certainly communicate that to the developer that we'd like to see something else. I've made other suggestions as well. If you have any proposals, I'm seeing a nice sort of more farmhouse style aesthetic, if we could call it that there. I'm sure they'd be open to hearing your suggestions.
My name is Kimberly Kay, and I have a lot of questions actually, but I'm just wondering in terms of a state appeal, and just to, let's just pretend Santa Cruz County is 10,000 acres, and so they're requiring 10,000 more units. So if we were to present the idea that we don't have 10,000 acres available, we only have 1,000 acres available because of our water and fire and everything else, wouldn't that then reduce the requirement of the required number of units they're proposing? You know what I mean? So they're looking at it from a map, thinking we have all flat area, and so, oh, you can fit 10,000 units there. And so, I don't know if that was any possibility. And then also, I was really curious about, I wrote it down on my other piece of paper over there. I'll think of it and get back in line. Thank you so much.
So in the past, we certainly have seen that one arm of the state doesn't know what the other is doing. There have been affordable housing projects that were basically ready to go in Monterey, and then were stopped because the state water board decided there wasn't enough water. So it is certainly always possible that something like that could happen. It's been asked, well, there's numerous projects being considered for the area, we need a total picture. The projects will be considered one by one as they come up, right? We can't assume that any project is going to move forward. Anyone can fall through for financing reasons or anything else. And so as the projects come up, we'll consider whether or not we have the resources available to serve them. And if we do, they'd be approved most likely. Next question.
Thank you. My name is Linda Goitia. You shared some great information about water, but I still have some concerns. This is from Heidi Luckenbach, the water director of the City of Santa Cruz Water Department. She said the city and other users had to submit a plan that they did submit to achieve sustainability by 2040. Our Bell's wells are in the basin that we've talked about and are currently operated under the agreement with Soquel Creek Water District, and they are currently not meeting sustainability targets. Now, based on everything you said, we may be getting close to sustainability for the existing population. Are we close for all the people we plan to add in the Soquel corridor? And then there's an item about sewer. You had a conversation with one of our residents on September 4 where you stated, we're just looking at the sewer infrastructure and it's not great in the area. So when there's a project that's coming forward for 41st and Soquel, and so basically when that goes in, we're close to capped out as far as sewer capacity. If that project is going in ahead of the one at Soquel and Thurber, and that would cap out the sewer capacity, what becomes of the proposal for the one at the end of our street? And then finally, there's a discrepancy that I can't quite resolve. I wrote a letter to the Planning Commission on April 30, right after that first meeting. Your staff report entitled Study Session on the Proposed Ministerial Combining District contains an alarming and anti-democratic proposal. It says projects meeting all the standards would not be subject to CEQA and would not require public hearings. That is an outrageous in-run around the public because you well know that people won't show up to attend a meeting on a proposed ministerial combining district because most people don't even know what that is. I didn't until I looked it up. So then in your newsletter, you state that there will be a hearing on this particular project between January and March of 2025. But 2 paragraphs later, you say it is applying for building permits under State Law AB 2011's ministerial process. That means it won't require a public hearing or approval from either the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. But we wouldn't have that ministerial process if the Planning Department hadn't voted it in.
Yeah. Wonderful questions. I will respond to them in reverse order, starting with the ministerial approval. First of all, just to clarify, and I think if you look closely at the words there, it's the 41st and Soquel project that is applying under ministerial approval process. That's AB 2011, not this project, not the Thurber and Soquel project, 41st. This project is applying under more or less standard processes to the extent that those exist anymore, and will have to be heard by the planning department. Planning commission. And that'll be a public hearing, maybe in the first quarter of next year, could get pushed out. The next question was about sewer, and when I mentioned that after 41st and Soquel is actually a little bit further behind this project. This one is out in front, and so will most likely happen first, and that was considered in my remarks when I said talk about sewer capacity. This project has received a will cert letter from our sanitation district, our sewer district, saying that there's enough. And also, if you've noticed Brookwood Drive is closed, that's because we're upgrading the sewer over there. That Orana trunk line, which this project relies on, is getting improved, and because it has to be, just for all of us that are already here, pipes are real darn old, and we're getting a whole lot of leakage and infiltration. That's no good. We've got to upgrade the pipes no matter what, and this project has already received a will cert letter on sewer. The last question was on water. You had the quote from the city water department about their belts wells. That's actually a very, very, very small portion of the city's water supply. So, as I mentioned, it's actually, I think, 94 or 96% of city water, Santa Cruz City Water Department, comes from surface water, San Lorenzo River, North Coast streams. 4 to 6% comes from those belt wells, which are over in the Pleasure Point area. The city doesn't rely on them a whole lot, and yes, because they're close to the coast, they're not great wells to pull from. And so them being in jeopardy is kind of, yeah, we've always known those might need to either go offline. They could also become injection wells for the surface water. We could basically reverse the flow. And as I mentioned, that's kind of the general plan for the area, is to start taking that excess surface water and put it in the ground.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Beebe, and I live at the top of this neighborhood. And I mostly have a fire concern because up above our house is Amigo Road, and that neighborhood is going to evacuate into this neighborhood during a fire. They now have a road carved out up to their neighborhood. So that means we have all those residents, plus we have the school, and I'm not totally against this project. Everybody needs a place to live. Apparently we need more students at this school. But one concern I have is that we haven't looked at the whole fire issue of Santa Cruz Gardens. I mean, if folks are coming up here, if people are coming up here in Wood right away to get your child in a fire, and then we have people coming the opposite direction from Amigo who unload right on Catherine Lane. And I mean, it's just got to be what it is, but we're all coming down Thurber. There's no other way out other than the fire road, which we all know about. Hopefully the gates open in time. And then we all dump out onto Thurber, and they're all going to be parked right at the bottom of Thurber also. So I don't mean to be negative, but maybe we kind of need to get it together with some kind of real fire plan up here, especially if this ends up bringing more students into the school. That's my real concern is about
I'm all for improving fire safety in the neighborhood, and I will certainly talk with our Office of Response, Recovery and Resilience Director about the evacuation plan and capacity for this neighborhood, make sure that we have adequate escape routes. And also, I think you have Santa Cruz Gardens FireWise community, which helps you identify risks and address those risks individually. I know you, from a county perspective, we've started removing some of the eucalyptus trees that are dangerous along Thurber Lane after that one fell, was it a couple of years ago now? And we were,
These folks are right.
We're continuing to remove those periodically. And we are looking at applying for state grants to create a fire break generally around the neighborhood. And again, we'll work with your FireWise community to do that.
I'm sorry, it's not your turn. You're waiting until your
Hi. I was pretty much on the fence, undecided about this project before I came here. I'm a free market guy, and I don't think counties really should stomp on individual property rights. But something doesn't smell right here. It does not smell right. There's a lot going on when they talk about public-private partnership. Let me translate that for you. Public is not us. It's the government, and they get money from two places, taxes or borrowing. And the borrowing takes money out of our paychecks. It causes inflation. So I just want to set the record straight. The way Mr. Koenig has painted the development here was dating back from April and then so forth. I'd kind of like to know, when did this state law get passed? A new word, ministerial, I never heard before. But let me translate it for everybody. Tyranny. And you do not comply your way out of tyranny. Now, this was Manu's statements from March. It's reported by the Santa Cruz local online site. Manu Koenig, I think supervisors have a greater role to play in facilitating than funding. I'm working to create opportunities for affordable housing projects on county land. He goes on, Ameline Complex, Freedom Health. These are all sites close to 5 acres in each site for affordable housing projects. We're pursuing public-private partnerships there and hopefully pull together some public funding for those projects as well. As far as facilitated projects, I think that's where I think the focus needs to be, because ultimately we need to utilize market mechanisms to create all the housing that's necessary. There's no market mechanism when you're talking about public funding. I'm excited, he said, about doing something similar to what Los Angeles did with Executive Directive 1, where they made all 100% affordable housing developments ministerial. Thank you.
So you asked, when did this ministerial law come into effect? So it's AB 2011. It's the bottom of the screen here. Was passed in 2022 by the state legislature, and that required ministerial approval for these 100% affordable housing projects on commercially zoned properties. Then I think, actually I didn't address, because there's a lot of questions, then the previous speaker who asked about this ministerial process we approved, and it's so abstract and whatever show up. The state did require us to include that too. The ministerial zoning that's being applied to specific sites were ones that were included in our housing plan last time, 8 years ago, and never got developed. And so the state came in and said, well, if they weren't developed last time, why should we believe they're going to be developed this time? You better do something to sweeten the deal for whoever wants to build there and put a ministerial overlay on. That's required by the state. And yes, market forces are at play here. We have looked at building on county land. That's why I can tell you a little bit about those economics. A lot of the projects we looked at just don't pencil out. It's kind of crazy. I mean, we are seeing today a lot, because of the high interest rates and because of the high construction costs, situations where you basically end up at a zero land value. That you'd have to pay someone to build on your land rather than being paid for the land. The only projects that we saw pencil out or getting close to penciling out with county land were the all-wood construction 3-story walk-up apartments, where you don't necessarily need an elevator, you don't necessarily need structured parking. And that really was something we would maybe consider on Ameline. It still didn't pencil out. So just, I mean, we're talking about building at the county building. We didn't see a construction method that today would even pencil out. The way this project is working, the reason you're seeing these 100% affordable housing projects is because federal funding is available through tax credits, and that basically closes the gap for projects and make them pencil out. So that's why you're not seeing market rate units for sale today. The interest rates are going to have to come down, the construction costs are going to have to come down before those kinds of projects pencil. Some of them do. The townhomes, they can probably be sold for about 1.5 million, 1,800 square feet, 3-bed, 2.5 bath. Those sell, and those will get built under today's conditions.
Thank you. Can you bring up the sketch of the artist sketch of the site, please? Yeah, I just walked down there this afternoon, and their site doesn't fit on the lot. Down at the lower left corner, there's currently a bus stop. It extends all the way over to the tree line. So they're building their building actually out into the street as it's indicated. On the left side, going up Thurber, there's the power lines for all of Santa Cruz Gardens. And they're right up against the pavement on the street. It's really dangerous. They're gonna have to underground all of those. They're gonna have to put in a shoulder. They'll need parking or a right turn lane on it. So you're gonna have to add another lane. It's gonna take off the entire left side of that building. The other thing is, that's all sediment on top of sandstone, and it looks like the water table is about 15 to 20 feet below the surface. You can't put a 5-story building on that, it's gonna fall over, especially during an earthquake. And the other thing, there's a Smith's blue butterfly that lives in that area. That's endangered. So they have to take care of doing something with that. I think they're not allowed to build that. And the building's going to be LEED certified. Are they going to have solar panels? Are they going to be charging for cars? Are they going to be elevators for people that are handicapped? None of these things are talked about. They just put up a pretty picture. And also they need up elevators for people with wheelchairs.
So thank you, sir. Those are all great points. Certainly the reports will have to be done on the soil quality and the ability to handle the size of the structure that's proposed before any permits are issued. That is something that could probably stop the project. If it's like, hey, it's quicksand, guys, you can't build here. Yeah, that's a pretty legitimate reason not to build here. They'll have to, I'm sure, account for the butterfly. The issues around like power poles and bus stops and where exactly those would be moved, what's proposed. Yeah, those are details that the developer is going to have to solve. I think that was everything that you mentioned.
My name is Celia Rowland. I have a more mundane interest and far less creative. The parking, when you allocate 1.5 spaces per unit, that is farcical. Families have 2 cars, irrespective of the quality of the bus line. That's just how we live. Some people do ride bikes, but my concern is that there's going to be woefully inadequate parking. There's nowhere for overflow parking. It doesn't allow for visitors who will also tend to drive. And but my concern actually pales in comparison to the concerns raised by the gentleman who was up here before, and then the concerns about the water. But I do think that these feasibility studies should have been done before creating all this tumult.
Well, yes, it's always a difficult line to walk between being transparent and telling people about what plans are being developed and making sure that actually every problem potentially is solved for before doing so. Like I said, all those studies are underway now. As far as parking goes, I think I mentioned the waivers and concessions bit, right? So this point basically doesn't matter what parking requirements we have in our county code. If it's an affordable project like this, you get a waiver for whatever parking ratio they want. Really what's determining the parking ratio is the financing. It's the banks who say, yeah, we believe that you'll be able to rent that unit with 1.5 spaces available, or maybe 1 for some, 2 for others. Maybe they're actually going to separate the rental of the parking spaces from the units. I'm not sure how they plan on doing it exactly, but again, we are trying to provide multimodal options to the best of our ability here, including the buffered and protected bike lanes, the bus service, and
Will we lose parking along the Thurber?
oh, sorry. That I don't think has been finalized yet. Whether parking will be available on Thurber, obviously, it's would be nice, and we prefer to see parking remain there. Probably not right at the corner, no matter what, because of just danger around turning off of Soquel Drive or with visibility issues. But I also want to advocate for maintaining parking on Thurber further up. And as I said, also in my commitments to you, I'll introduce a parking program so that all these cars, that people cannot have 5 cars parked on our city streets. It's a scarce resource, and we have to find a way to share it equitably. Really, that's what parking programs are for.
So I live on Sequoia Drive at the bottom of the hill. So the parking piece is one of the concerns I have, because if you put those units, they're going to clog that street. So permits are a critical thing for us. I have a neighbor that has 10 vehicles because he owns a small business. So we already battled that in front of a couple of our houses. The other concern I have is with Winkle Park. When you add a 150-unit complex right next to Winkle Park, we've already experienced people throwing parties, barbecues, and so forth. And I think that's a wonderful part of what we can do as a community. The challenge I foresee is cleaning up of the area thereafter. When there is large parties and festivals, there's glitter everywhere, there's beer cans, it's just a pigsty, to be honest. And with adding that kind of population right near that park, my concern is that the park is going to, quality of that park that brings us there is going to diminish quickly. And as well, the city isn't going to be able to maintain the quality of that park, especially without any kind of, they only have running water there. They don't have restrooms or any other things for that area. So those are issues that, if you want people to go to the park and enjoy it, those are going to have to be addressed to make sure we have a beautiful place to enjoy in our neighborhood.
Thank you, those are great suggestions. Restrooms at Winkle Park, noted. A couple things on Winkle Park. First of all, we actually have an unused parcel owned by the county, it's the county park, and there's a piece that's not part of the public park today that we can basically use to expand the park. There's 2 homes there that are renting out to the county, and so when this project happens, we could look at expanding the total size of the park. In fact, actually to the point of maintenance, our county parks department would like to use one of the existing homes as a maintenance structure, so they can host their equipment and vehicles there. So that does come to fruition, then certainly the park will be first in line for maintenance, because it's where everyone will report for maintenance every day.
There's also a defunct barn.
And yes, there is a defunct barn or house on the property that we could also look at converting into more of a community center. So love the ideas. These projects and others do develop park impact fees, which is a source of revenue that we can apply towards improving the park. And I'll certainly also look at other potential sources like Measure K that passed, the new half-cent sales tax in March. Whether we voted for it or not, we're paying it in the unincorporated county, and it does provide a source of funding to improve our parks, and certainly look at improving my county.
My name is Edward Oxia. I moved from San Francisco a couple of years ago with my wife and our 2 kids. And needless to say, San Francisco, the whole housing crisis, we can expand. And I never thought that we can expand it in Santa Cruz. We have phobia of coyotes or something. I don't get it. Move a couple of pipes, and provide for further development somewhere more feasible. Because the words sustainability, safety are thrown around like freely, like, oh yeah. So my question is, do we really have sustainability and safety in this neighborhood as is? The answer is rhetoric. I'm a foreigner, sorry, if you don't understand my French. And so basically, we are not. We don't have it. And it reminds me a phrase from back home that says, the fish in the ocean and the frying pan on the stove. How about we catch the fish first? How about we fix the problem first? How about we pay attention to sustainability first? It's like a sacred word around here, around the entire state for that matter, that doesn't give us an option. It's like, hey, build it now, 180, or in 5 years you're gonna get 5,000. It's like the same as telling my kids, eat your broccoli or you don't get the ice cream. And we must remind you that we're not your kids. We are the ones who put you in the office. We are the ones that pay for everything. And our voices are shut down. This is tyranny. It's tyranny. Either you are a leftist or a rightist. It matters none. It matters very little. This is tyranny. And tyranny does not have a space in a civilized society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I did not make any of the laws that are putting this into effect. So I do fully suggest that you share your comments and thoughts on tyranny with our state legislators.
We will. It's coming up.
I'm glad to hear it. As far as sustainability goes, we have started the sustainable projects, right? To the extent, like I said, Soquel Drive, we're making it safer to bike with a protected bike lane, increasing the frequency of the bus. If you have any other ideas, by all means, would love to hear them. As far as improving safety on Thurber, I'll give you the mic back if you can, 30 seconds or less. What safety improvements or other sustainable improvements that you'd like to see? By all means, please.
I do have a suggestion. We as a community buy that land and make it a park for our kids to play. How's that sound? With biking paths and everything. And stick it to the government, to the state and everybody. And this gentleman over there, our governor. I do not know you personally. I hope you have a better common sense than him, right? And then we'll probably get my vote. I'll search it. Thank you very much.
My name is Sandy Crow. Live on Thurber. We had the tree closer. And I would really have a problem with it. All of these folks. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. Sorry, I've never spoken in my before. But all these folks here had troubles getting to their house.
Still not.
No fire, no police, no ambulance, nothing. So I would really appreciate if we could take that concern serious and getting our first responders up there with something. It's going to happen again. There's no question about it. We've had a lot of activity on the street, and this is a huge problem. And then my last state, it's not really a question, it's a statement. And that is, the project itself is going to happen. And so, how are we getting the heavy equipment in there? Where are these workers going to park? What is the noise ordinance going to be? What is the dust requirements? How on this corner what time is this project going to start? What time is this project going to end? All these questions, health and safety. If it's 5 stories, there's going to be a crane. There's going to be heavy equipment on this property. They got kids, people going back and forth to school. We got families pushing strollers up and down the street. Please take that into consideration when the project gets to that point, that you take into account the noise, the kids getting up and down the hill for school, people going to work, the dust, and what are you going to do with all this heavy equipment going down Soquel? And where are these workers going to park? There's going to be 200 men and women on that project working. There's 200 cars, lunch trucks coming to and from to feed these people. So please take that into consideration. When you get to that point of the project, that you have a timeline, you have access, they're going to be clean, they're going to be respectful of the neighbors, and that they're going to do a good job. Please.
Thank you, sir. Yes, there. Of course, we do have a lot of county laws around when people can work and the plans they have to have as far as creating dust or mud as it may be in the winter. But I'm happy to get the details of that and share it with the community at the appropriate time. And to your point about eucalyptus trees, yes, after that tree fell, we have started spending money cutting any tree that's in the county right of way. Right now we've got a 3-year plan to remove dangerous trees. And a lot of the trees also are on private property on both sides of the road. And we're working. working with private property owners, we'll work with them to remove them, but ultimately, we'll probably require at least some private property owner expense to remove all the hazardous trees, and of course, that's also the benefit of having a fire-wise community and a safety plan, is you identify which trees need to be taken out, and because you have a plan, it's easier to get state grants also to help with doing that.
Yeah, we'd like. Walk through my front yard to meet
Well,
your
I
house.
had to go around to go to that service road,
Yeah.
and I saw it was two
Thank you.
beautiful community members that were doing
It was wonderful, yeah.
because
Yeah,
somebody
that's great.
almost fell down, like you can see, where, yeah, the car, it was really.
It's nice to thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's my husband there. My name's Diana Walker. I live down Thurber Lane where the big giant tree used to be. We cut that down ourselves on our property. The birthday tree. The birthday tree. And I left it there for a long, long, long time. And the arborist said there was too many nails.
Why did you cut it down?
Oh, because it was affecting our property, the roots and our roof.
That tree was there before your property was.
Oh, let's not get that. You know, we're not here for that tree. It had to go to save my property and my home. I was a single mother raising 2 kids by myself. Okay.
You have a question about the project?
Okay. My concern is the eucalyptus trees. I have talked to the tree services that are out there, whether it be Lewis Tree or the regular one that goes by there. Davy, yes, and I have talked to them. It is privately owned property. I have talked to them numerous times, and it's in a trust. And that's what they do. They put their property in a trust so that we can't go after them. We can't go down to the courthouse and get names to find out who these people are that own these trees. They're so tall that they will take out the homes. They nearly took ours out, and we did the work ourselves. We cut that tree down. We cleared the road. We didn't have any help. And we have a homeowners association we belong to and pay into. They did not help us. So anyway, the congestion, okay, as I was saying to you when I walked in, we've got freeway entrances on both sides of this project. We've got them down at the end of Soquel and 41st, and on the other side, going the other way, when people are going to work, coming home. This is going to add an hour to maybe an hour and a half to your getting home from work, getting out of your house to go and run your regular errands because of the added congestion on that corner. I'm not saying there's not a solution for the housing. We've got to do something about housing and add it, but there may not be the best place.
Thank you. Briefly on the eucalyptus, no, sorry, our time's up. We've got to have this. I'm happy to respond to that. As far as eucalyptus trees go on private property, we'll make a note to reach out to Central Fire because they do have a weed abatement ordinance, which basically allows them to do any vegetation management on private property and bill the property owner. And so we'll look at if that's not sufficient to handle eucalyptus trees at the moment, maybe expanding that ordinance so that it is. And we can address, we can start sending bills to the trust.
Thank you.
As far as the traffic goes, just for perspective, 20,000 cars a day use Soquel Drive at this point out here. So that's the flow that we're seeing today. 183 units, let's say it's twice as many, 360 additional cars. So yes, that's more, but it's not going to, most of the traffic you're seeing out there is probably people flowing through this part of town rather than coming to this part of town. That's why we hope adding a light, that last stop sign, putting in the right-hand turn lane, timing the lights on Soquel, adding a lane on the highway are all going to help people get further south. And of course, to that extent, it's probably better for the housing that does go in, put it as close, if someone is commuting, actually, Dominican Hospital is one of the biggest employers in the county. The other biggest one is UCSC. So you're relatively close. You can actually take a bus all the way up to UCSC from here. And then otherwise, maybe people are commuting over the hill. In which case, certainly I'm sure everyone further south here would appreciate if they get off the highway sooner rather than later. In the future, we'll certainly look at improving the Thurber Soquel intersection. Because we have, of course, commercial coming in there, and if anything does happen at the, you mentioned 2 hospitals, of course there is Sutter Maternity across the street. Sutter owns the drive-in lot. They thought they bought it in case they ever wanted to build a hospital. They don't. Our healthcare market stinks. Half of our population is on government insurance, Medicare or Medi-Cal, and it doesn't make any money. It underpays the costs of the service. And so they don't want to expand full service hospital. They might, and have talked about doing an oncology center there, like a linear, I don't know all the details, but linear accelerator treatment for treating cancer. It might take up half the site with a single-story building, so you know, great. And if not, then they're certainly considering doing something with housing too. So yes, we have to consider all the impacts, and as any new projects are proposed, we could certainly start to look at further improvements for the Thurber Soquel intersection.
Yeah. Next question. Next question.
Turn it back.
It sure feels like a lot of this stuff is getting crammed right into this little area. Is there anywhere else in the unincorporated area where a 5-story building is being proposed?
Yes. Well, 41st and SoCal.
No, I'm not. I said.
Par 3.
No, I said in this. Yeah, I know that, but I'm talking about this little SoCal corridor. There's a lot of projects planned right in this little area.
And maybe, you can say that this particular project might not add a lot of traffic to SoCal, but the one at 41st, and you combine them all together, all those ones, and you're gonna tell me that's gonna have no impact? When you yourself said that you avoid driving SoCal during certain times. We don't have that luxury.
I never said there would not be an impact. We recognize there's going to be an impact. That's why the project has to do a traffic impact study. Yes, there are other projects proposed for the area. You can see them here, right? So Thurber and Soquel, 181. We'll update to 183 with the manager's units proposed. There's 21 condo units, just a little bit up Thurber, above the Wells Fargo a ways. 5 single-family homes currently being considered also on Thurber. There's the Paul Suite 84-unit project I mentioned. And then it's true, the largest, flattest area in the unincorporated county is Flea Market and Good Shepherd combined. 14 acres, actually about 20 acres combined. And so yeah, the 4,634 acres that we have to build, or at least plan for, it is likely that something will happen at those sites. And of course, 41st and Soquel is a typo. There should be 287 units, 89. And so, as each project is proposed, we look at the traffic impact at that time. The state took away another tool and said that when we consider traffic impacts, we really should be considering vehicle miles traveled and not the service level at any intersection. And so it used to be we could say, oh, sorry, you can't do the project. People are going to have to wait too long at this intersection. Now we have to say, well, are people going to be driving less than they were before? And of course, this can lead to weird outcomes, like with the Kaiser property, which I heard someone mention when they were considering that on the other side of the highway. They had like a 700-car garage, but they were saying that actually there would be a net reduction in vehicle miles traveled because now people wouldn't have to go over the hill to get specialty care. So, I mean, again, this is just one more tool that's been taken away from us. On the plus side, these projects will be paying traffic impact fees and will provide some additional funding to improve things in the area. Obviously something will be needed in this stretch of SoCal.
And on Thurber.
Just, Monty, think if this project or a project similar to it, maybe a 5-story, 6-story building was proposed in your neighborhood, maybe say East Cliff Village. How would you feel about it?
I understand. None of us want the quality of life that we have to change. I would certainly feel apprehensive too. I'll be here at this meeting, and that's why I'm taking the time away from my family to be here for you. Thank you. Yes, two things. Kaiser was canceled, right? They ultimately said, thanks to the COVID crisis, more commercial real estate available. They have 3 rental properties today. They're just expanding each one of those sites. They canceled the project across the street. And then there is one more project that needs to be added to this list, which is the Silver Spur. We're looking at 90 units, I believe, of assisted living. On that kind of that whole row there, and there's actually a meeting about it next week. October 17th, Thursday, 7 p.m. Is it online? On site at the Silver Spur.
They're taking Silver Spur.
I've actually not seen their updated plans. When I saw a proposal, or a very rough concept, I should say, a couple of years ago, they did maintain a commercial portion on the first floor, including potentially restaurant space and a pharmacy. Whether or not they're still considering that, I don't know.
We like the sunny side up, but don't take it.
So next Thursday on site, 7 p.m.
Yeah, I have 3 for you. I mean, probably don't want to, but I'm king. I have 3 questions for you. Sorry. I was wondering if you could speak to what's going on with the planning department and meeting the housing element. So the planning department is conducting meetings. They've identified underutilized parcels in Santa Cruz County and parcels that are completely empty, and unbeknownst to a lot of people, they are rezoning them for multi-unit developments. And it's to accommodate in the event those parcels are sold. There's in fact 2 on Benson that in their first batch that they did a blanket approval, and there's multiple houses that they approved for 2 parcels on Benson right at the turn. So if those were to sell, a developer could come in and build. So I would encourage all of you people to get involved about what's really going on, and it's going on very quietly. It's going on at 9 o'clock in the morning when everybody's at work, and it's pretty absurd, the process in general. So, yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask you is, you've been speaking a lot about critical services, doctors, nurses, teachers, people we really do need in the community to really help us, the people who are here, and the people who will be moving in, but yet this type of housing, they would not qualify for it. So what in our area are you actually doing to, a doctor would not qualify for this? I think there's a lot of discussion around what we need in Santa Cruz County. You just said that half our population is on Medi-Cal and Medicare. And those probably a lot of people would qualify for this, but we need the doctors to actually help those people, and we're not providing housing for them. We're not building homes that they could potentially buy and create, a life for themselves here that is affordable. So I don't understand this. There's a lot of contradiction to what we're doing here. And you also said that the largest employer in Santa Cruz County is Dominican, and many of these people probably will not get a job there. And lastly, can you speak to how you're going to keep us informed every step of the way, and why haven't you gone to Sacramento to tell them this is absurd for our county, period? Why aren't you going there and speaking for us?
Go in reverse order. As far as communicating with our legislators, now's the best time. They're in town. Their session's done. They're not in Sacramento. They're here in Santa Cruz. And so I'll schedule breakfast with John Laird and tell him he needs to change all the housing laws tomorrow. Will he do it? What do you think? I'm happy to tell him. I have a lot of constituents who are very frustrated about it. Yeah, and suggest some changes.
Well, you have the
And please. I'm happy to communicate. I suggest you do too. And if you don't like them, vote for someone else. They'll probably get elected anyway, but it sends a message. As far as income limits, you talked about teachers, doctors, etc. This is the income limits. I don't know off the top of my head what a teacher makes. I think it's somewhere between 60 to 70 in our community. So they would qualify, income level. That's considered about if there's one person household. And they certainly would qualify. We need plenty of those new teachers moving into the area. Doctors. Actually, like I said, the two kinds of projects we're seeing are these large, 100% affordable projects that can take advantage of federal tax credits, and townhomes. There are a number of townhome projects coming in, not in this immediate area, but there are about 100 townhomes here, 100 townhomes there, 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 3-story, 2-car garage, 4-car parking with 2 out in front. Those units will be added because they make financial sense, and yes, those will probably be exactly what doctors might consider buying. Planning. Why all the units? I mean, again, this entire process is being required by the state. The number of units we have to plan for. I mean, I'm at an old me, any time of day makes sense. We're here now. But it honestly doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether it's 9 a.m., 6 p.m., middle of the day, middle of the night. We gotta put the units on the zoning map, and what happens when we don't? Well, there's remedy.
That's where we need you to go to Sacramento and fight for us.
So, yeah.
Let's have a meeting with John.
Oh, sorry. Plan to keep you informed. We'll certainly. That's why we asked you to sign in tonight, even though it took a little bit longer. We don't have all your emails. Any new development or new information we get about the project, we'll send out communication to all of you that way. I appreciate. I think it was you can put up the signs and help send out some flyers. That's great. Appreciate the community action and help getting the word out to others.
All right, thanks for your time. Can you hear me? Let's see, if this goes according to the timeline that you spelled out, in February or March, it goes to the Planning Commission, right? It's county Planning Commission, correct?
Fastest
Probably,
probably,
yeah.
but yeah.
Is Tim Gordon still on the Planning Commission?
Yes.
Who is Tim Gordon? Tim Gordon is the CEO of Workbench. Workbench, would you go back to the list of projects along with Builder's Remedy? Number 4, Paul Sweet. Will that happen to be a Workbench project?
It is.
So Tim Gordon is Workbench. Who am I? I am Rob Oliveros, lifelong resident of Santa Cruz County, 30-year resident of Sequoia. So I'm going to read a letter. Okay, essentially, you were sent a letter by Save Pleasure Point, and their worry or contention was, how is this not a conflict of interest? Having the CEO of Workbench as a planning commissioner, having stuff like this happen. Now, you're obviously an intelligent person. So explain to me, perhaps not an intelligent person, how this is not a conflict of interest.
Clearly you are an intelligent person, and I appreciate the homework. I'll admit that when I appointed Tim Gordon to the Planning Commission, he had not proposed any projects of this kind of size.
When was that?
It was at the beginning of my term, first term, back in 2021, and so it's been 3.5 years, and obviously this has become a problem. I'll admit it. I agree. Now, hey, sir, let me just answer your question. First of all, if there's a direct conflict of interest, he has to not take the meeting. And after I received the letter from Pleasure Point, I appointed a new alternate planning commissioner who would step in any case where there's a conflict of interest. Now, yes, I agree. It is high time for another planning commissioner, and anyone of you,
My time is now.
any of you that have building experience and time to commit,
40 years.
time to commit to this, it's once or twice a week, Wednesday, 9 a.m. to noon, please apply. Please apply.
Honestly, I put it entirely on the spot, maybe a little bit, but I'm kind of wondering how this has happened. And I'll tell you how part of it's happened. We've all been asleep at the wheel, every one of us. Okay? Yep. And government is a participation game. And we can sit by and sit and say, hey, this is just screwed up. It is.
Government is aligned with the carrot and the stick.
But we haven't been involved, and that's got to change. Santa Cruz Against Runaway Development on Facebook. I started it.
Okay.
Please apply, and I will also say I can't think of any particular planning commission decision where we could have stopped this kind of a development from ever happening. These are all state laws. And again, I'm happy to appoint a planning commissioner because I recognize that that's what our community needs. And the scope of Tim's projects have significantly changed over the last year. But yeah, I don't think that having a different planning commissioner will ultimately change any of this.
Okay, I just have a couple of quick comments to make. But first, thank you. I recognize you're doing a really hard job, and honestly, a lot of this starts with us voting at the state level for the policies that we want to see. So just throwing it out there. But Santa Cruz Gardens is a super precious school. My daughter went there last year. It's really, really sweet, and it needs more enrollment. But it doesn't need 3 housing projects worth more of enrollment, and Thurber cannot deal with. I see Thurber, Soquel, 41st and Soquel, and Good Shepherd. I don't even know about the rest of them. Oh, Thurber Custom Homes at Benson, for sure. But the point is, all of those fall within Santa Cruz Gardens, and Soquel Elementary and Main Street Elementary are pretty full, and where they're not full in enrollment, there are no after-school care programs. None that are not completely impacted. We actually had to move my daughter out of the district this year because there's a 6-month wait list to get any aftercare, and my husband and I work full-time. So she can't even go to school in our district because we could not deal with just 9:30 to 2:30 school. So my point is, one, yes, the school needs more enrollment, but not that much more enrollment. So I hope you're thinking about that and trying to figure out how we sustainably do that. And then Thurber really can't support full enrollment with also a full community. If the community is full of families that are going to the school, great. But if we're adding a bunch of families plus the traffic in the community, it is a stress on the system. And I've seen the service road work, and it doesn't work 2 ways. So in an emergency, that service road is either working to get people out, or it's working to get emergency vehicles in, and it's not working both ways. So just pointing out that it is creating real stress on the system. Again, appreciating you and what you're doing, and realizing that at the state level, this is something that we all kind of voted in.
Yeah, so happy to, I think our superintendent of Soquel, you left, I don't see Scott anymore, but happy to work with him on this. I know we suggested that we should bring back school buses. That'd be great. We'll give you the funding source for that. But along those lines, that's why we made riding the Metro bus free for students as a start, right? It was a quick and easy thing to do. We've seen a 400% increase in student ridership on our local buses. So we've got the capacity here at Soquel Gardens, at least as far as the potential for enrollment. Live Oak School District also would love to see more students. I don't know if you guys followed it, but they are seeing a huge budget crisis right now. They've kind of resolved it, but it's ongoing. They've dropped from 2,300 students down to 1,500 over the last few years. I would love to see some more students. So Green Acres campus being, not too far away, that was one place where students could go. But happy to work with Scott and anyone else on suggestions to improve school care. I'm certainly, as someone with a 17-month-old, we've seen firsthand how expensive and difficult to find childcare is in our county. And so it's this double-edged sword of, well, we don't have the housing to add more educators and childcare professionals, but at the same time, adding more housing will increase pressure on the whole system. So, yes, try to balance that and love any comments and suggestions.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is to get personal first before I talk about the project. I think your presentations written are pro-development. I don't see you fighting for us. I hear yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. I can't do anything because the law says so. I disagree with you. I don't hear you fighting for us. The question I have is that the developer proposal is based on bonuses. Bonuses are, I can't remember them all, but bonuses are how much land is donated to the project, and in this case, there was some property donated to the property for the project, and that was the Riparian Way. Non-buildable, therefore it doesn't qualify, and therefore they should not get the bonus points that help develop a 5-story building. That's number one. Number two, traffic. They do not meet the criteria for bonuses based on the traffic access at Soquel and Thurber. The road needs to be widened. Yes, you said, yeah, we're thinking about it. Not good enough. This project can't be done without it. That's where you have to defend us. That's right. Another area that they built on bonuses, water, same thing. And again, I haven't heard anything in any of these presentations where we're being represented questioning. Now, what I'm hearing and reading is we're going to get sued if we don't agree. And last point, even though you talk about schooling in decline, has the school department been involved to where, yes, can they develop the necessary programs to support? Haven't heard you say yes, haven't heard you say no. This is what we need to know. And as a senior citizen, you said it's based on the youth who's gonna need housing. And we're a bunch of old fogies, okay? Well, yeah, we are, but when I pass, my family will inherit the house. Yeah, they'll take over, and that's what's gonna happen here. And this community has a lot of young people. Don't discount them.
Good for you.
A lot there. Let's start with the personal stuff that I'm too pro-development. Sure. Well, look, I was born and raised in Santa Cruz. And the last thing I want to see is our town fail. I do want to see more young people here. I do want to see kids in the schools. I want to see teachers being cut because there aren't enough students. So yeah, I want to see more housing. That's true. I would rather see it in an incremental way through ADUs. We've seen that that's a successful strategy. State's saying that's great, but it's not enough. You do have to do this. You guys, I have a big freaking job.
Fight for us.
I understand, but most areas have a whole council, whole city council, and then a supervisor. 90% of this district is unincorporated. So there's a lot of problems to deal with. And that's just to say, look, I don't want to have unnecessary fights. It's true. What do you want? I mean, the Santa Cruz City Council denied their project. 2 months later, they were back approving it.
Fighting for your constituents is the most necessary.
Sure. You want me to make some votes saying this is too big, don't do it? Okay.
No, take a stance.
You know, like, we can, what I will commit to doing, and I appreciate it, you know, like, okay, what can we do around traffic? Could we add another, turn pocket or something around Thurber when this is built that would somehow improve the flow there? How do we look at that? Absolutely, you're right. I can't take structured questions from the audience. There's actually no bonus being used on this project. That's false. No land was donated. That's false. The project is actually getting an exception to build so many less units than it's zoned for. Zoned for 280, building 183. That's what the state required our planning department to do, and if we didn't do it, the project would have been approved under builder's remedy.
They did not tell them to rezone it back in.
Okay. I will respond to that, which is we rezoned part of the site. It used to be zoned professional, office, and commercial. PA, CA. We rezoned it. If it had all been the commercial zoning, we probably would see an AB 2011 project, exactly like we're seeing at 41st and Soquel, ministerial application, no need to even have this meeting, no public input whatsoever. Commercial property has the same level of residential units that can be built per acre as residential property. The only reason we really rezoned it was to demonstrate to the state that we intended housing to be here, so they would count it in our housing plan, so we could get the whole thing approved faster and not have builders remedy.
Hello. So, we live next door here, and we have property, and there's probably about 10,000 eucalyptus trees over here. 5 years ago, we had a fire up on the hill, and it was caused by a transformer that fell from PG&E and caught the grass on fire, and it caught the whole area, the field on fire. My wife wasn't out front, and she saw it for that minute and called the fire department. They wouldn't have been able to stop it. 16 fire engines came and fought that fire and CAL FIRE and stopped it at the tree line, the eucalyptus tree line. 3 trees had burned up already 6 feet. If it got into those trees at eucalyptus, it would have taken out all of Santa Cruz Gardens. It would not stop. Those trees are, 50 to 100 feet tall. We just paid $20,000 to take out 10 trees that were 80 to 100 feet tall. They're very expensive to take out, but I maintain the land up there, which belongs to Barry Swinson, and I grade voluntarily 20 acres of land to keep that from happening again. So the thing is, we have huge fire danger here, and evacuation for this, and adding more housing, which is already going up in 2 lots on Thurber, and adding this, it's like, we know they're gonna build there, so make it limited to maybe 3-story instead of 5-story. In that lot, as you know, you live here and you drive by all the time in the rainy season, you know it's a bog in the middle. The tractor that was just out there grading it got stuck. They had 3 trucks out there, and they all got stuck trying to pull them out. It was like a bog or a spring or something. We don't have water because we haven't had a drought for 3 years, but what happens when the drought comes back?
Yeah.
It will. I've committed to working with officers, sponsor covering resilience, to reviewing the evacuation plan and capacity. It's true that if the soil is not sufficient, it could certainly stop the project, and that will have to be studied in detail for anything to move forward. And someone wants to shout out, I know there was a third part to the question, but
If you think of it,
So I live on Thurber Lane, and I've had a lot of interaction about this project, and I do appreciate the things you've tried to incorporate. One thing is you had a slide about the central fire bond. I think it's maybe R. And I've been curious because I looked at their website. The description talks about combining the fire stations and moving them, and I've wondered on these many more projects have been listed since that central fire page was up, and I wondered which direction does it affect there's plan to possibly move the station. I know for us, our fire insurance is really tied to the distance to fire stations, so I would be worried if they moved it. Also, with that many more units, I feel like it'd be better if they stayed and maybe improved the station. And one thing, then also to dovetail with the other guy, was talking about, I just have been curious about the substation and all of these developments just in this vicinity, and the transformers, like how does that affect the power? Is it, will they need to build more electrical infrastructure for all of them? And finally, I hope that if these projects go through, that somehow there'll be more walkable, more services, more improvements to the park to make it so that people don't have to drive as far, both the old residents and the new residents. They put a lot of big plans for an area that doesn't have walkability, different from other places in the county where very large projects were put, where there is already that kind of infrastructure and service, commercial services. So.
So as far as where the fire station could move, it would not be far. If measure are passed, the Central Fire's plan would be they'd like to get rid of the Soquel fire station that you see flooded there and combine it with the Thurber station right around the top of 41st somewhere. So it'd move a little bit, but not like a huge distance away. Certainly we'll invest in the park to improve the area and walkability, and I mean that's the there's quite a bit of commercial zoning in this area in general, and so the hope is that ultimately we can make it more walkable with each one of these projects, and that's why I've insisted on connectivity through the project and that we include some commercial space. The project originally had no commercial component.
I live on Lower Thurber, actually across the street from the main one we're talking about, and then next door to the 21-unit one. So I echo all the same concerns, but my big question is what studies are being done? I work at the hospital. What studies are being done to see how all of this is impacting the hospital? It's not uncommon for the hospital to be red, meaning no ambulances can get there. How often are patients hanging out in the emergency department for 24 or 48 hours because there are no beds upstairs? It's already pretty impacted. So what studies have been done or are being done for the hospital for healthcare?
It is a good question. It's true. Our emergency room, we have one of the lowest ratios of beds per patient or per population in the country. Right, that came out during COVID. Happy to connect with Nan Mickwitz, the CEO of the hospital, and see what their plan is on capacity. I haven't really dug into that yet.
There's a lot of big stuff around
Sure.
that area that people are going to go to or get diverted to Watsonville or Chomp or Trinidad or somewhere else.
Yeah, don't know the answer for you off the top of my head, but happy to look further into it. Thank you.
I'll be quick. I think we're in shock about all these changes. And as a longtime resident of Santa Cruz, it's pretty upsetting, the whole deal of what's going on. And also about the fire station, I mean, that just adds one more thing. They move, yeah, it's just down the street, but it's not, they'll have to fight traffic to get there too. So it's like one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. And yes, Santa Cruz has a housing crisis because everyone wants to live here. Winnemucca, Nevada does not have a housing crisis. And you can't build your way out of a housing, you're putting a Band-Aid on an issue that is never going to get solved. Not just you personally, but the powers that be. So I'm pretty upset about everything, and I'm sorry you have to be here. I'd rather be watching the 49er game myself, but this is kind of important, so that's why I'm here.
hear you loud and clear. As far as, building our way out of the crisis, well, we certainly could not be the most expensive city in the whole country. County, yes, thank you. Why not? Because you won't be able to get a doctor's appointment. Doctors cannot afford to live here. Now, when we talk about these kinds of projects, not new doctors, my wife is barely holding down her practice. It's really tough to hire new doctors. Like I said, $400,000 plus to buy an average price home. And so when we talk about these kinds of projects, they're not ones that someone at Google can rent. They're not ones that someone working a tech job over the hill can move into. The benefit of a 100% affordable housing project like this is they are income restricted. So you can't get someone moving into our community but working, probably not at a tech job over the hill. And that's where we've seen a lot of the demand. Coming in, buying up our housing stock, becoming second homes. We also have, to some extent, seen the out of the office movement slow and reverse, right? Back to the office to a fair extent. It's certainly not the same number of people coming to who can only work in 2 days a week over the hill. And so, in any case, these kinds of projects do offer some opportunity to provide important housing opportunities for people working in our local economy.
So I just have a question about the resource draw for the sheriff's department for this area. We already have a regular use of the sheriff resources for this particular area of Thurber and Soquel, and we have for many, many years. And has there been any studies or research done on the density of a placement of this many 100% affordable housing units in this particular area? I've seen some research on how spacing them out and further distances actually helps communities to better serve those communities, but when they're also more dense, there's a higher risk of additional resource draw, particularly from the sheriff's department. And so that translates to a safety risk for the people that live here, but from the broader perspective, have we done any research or studies on that at all?
What I'm hearing you say is you combine too many low-income units in one place and you're going to create a crime problem. And yes, certainly Emerald Bay Apartments has been problematic in the past. I think we've made some great strides there, but I will say a couple of things about the income levels here. You can see them on the screen. We're not talking about necessarily, and I should say, Section 8 vouchers, which basically means that the federal government pays the majority of your rent. We're running out of them in this county. So I would not expect all of these units to be taken up with Section 8 vouchers. So you will get, I think that ultimately this does become a pretty mixed income community because, look, if you can read here, income level at 70%, which I'm sure you'll have plenty of, 3-person households, so 2 adults and 1 child, $114,000 would qualify for that. Or 1 person at $88,000. These are not necessarily people that are going out there and stealing an air conditioner or a catalytic converter to make ends meet. Have we done this? The sheriff's office will absolutely continue to respond to the best of its ability based on the need. And I will continue to be a proponent of making sure that the sheriff's department is well funded and has the resources it needs to protect our community. We don't know exactly what the impact will be. We can't say that because it's income restricted, it's all criminals moving in here. That'd be pretty darn biased. And our planning process doesn't allow for that.
I don't want to go back and over things that you've already done. First of all, we appreciate you coming. I think a lot of these questions have to do with the impact on Thurber. You've heard Thurber mentioned many of these. Sorry. Thurber impact could be mitigated to some degree, I think, by the development of Winkle. Lower Winkle is like a country road down there. And I think if people could, from Sequoia and Twin Hills, could exit that way, it would help alleviate. Also, Winkle is stopped by a gate halfway up. If the upper Tiffany and Benson, if they could exit by Winkle, it mitigates the impact on Thurber. So it's just an issue that I'm not sure the county's looked at, whether the developer has looked at. That was my
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, just yesterday we were looking with the planning department at Upper Winkle. I think that gate was put in when the Benson Avenue homes were built, and we were trying to understand why and whether or not we could open the gate and whether it would improve flow. I think a big reason the gate was put in is because Upper Winkle's not really improved. There's no center line there. So could it be opened and flowed to try to improve the flow? Anything's possible with enough money. You would actually have to invest a fair amount in Upper Winkle and put in sidewalks to make sure it's the right width, to make sure it's sloped right, to have a center line, to redo where the gate is. And then the question is, would it actually get used enough? I mean, you basically have to go up the hill to come down. I mean, you could still take, Sequoia over to Winkle before getting to the Soquel Drive intersection, so I'm not sure it adds a whole lot of utility. We're happy to study it and look at the cost benefit of doing that versus any other improvements to Thurber.
So I was just wondering about the feasibility of underground electrical with all the fire danger here and with what we're proposing here. Have they looked at that in relation to this?
I don't think it's been specifically studied in this context. Certainly, again, anything's possible with enough money. Underground electrical is expensive. It's about $3 to $5 million a mile. We are doing it on Soquel San Jose Road, specifically to reduce fire hazard risk there. If there was an area where it warranted it here, and it's possible that to avoid conflict with the buildings, the developer would choose to do that. We could certainly talk about how they plan to handle the placement of the utilities and whether they'll consider undergrounding. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm hearing their plans actually show undergrounding.
All the way.
Along, I assume the Thurber side of the property.
It's one of those things that.
We're still looking at it, but it's in the current application.
Hello, my name is Dan. I have a question about how these income levels will be policed and managed in the future. And I also have another question in regards to the workforce in the future. Where are these people coming from, do you think, to fill these vacancies?
Good question around policing and policing the affordable component. I think there was a story that came out that it seemed like better accountability could be done with some of that within the city of Santa Cruz, and so I'm happy to have that discussion with how we manage it in both the short and long term. I mean, technically, there'll probably be the legal component will be there'll be a deed restriction on the property that says it must be rented at these income levels, and so then the enforcement element is certainly something I'm happy to make sure we have a good process for. As far as where people will be coming from, it's quite possible to be coming from within our community already. I mean, again, the average market rate rental for a 2-bedroom right now is $4,000 a month, so this will be cheaper than that for sure. And so it's possible that people will actually just be relocating to something more affordable. And then, who knows, maybe that then frees up a opportunity for a rental to be kind of a for sale unit or something.
A lot of people want to live in Santa Cruz, right? And they may be coming from other parts of the state to live in Santa Cruz.
And we certainly need them if they're a nurse or anyone else providing essential services. One person making $88,000 would qualify for one of these units. And we certainly have a lot of jobs at the county open at that exact income level. We would love another place to stay.
Is that the salary of the nurse?
I believe 88,000 is roughly in line with what an RN might make.
really do believe in providing. Oh, sorry. I do really believe in providing affordable housing. I've been on Facebook as a mom. I've seen so many moms talk about needing needing apartments that are affordable. I guess my concern is, and I think you talked about it, is doing this systematically, right? Seeing what the community needs in terms of expanding. But I also agree, everyone wants to live by the beach, but we have to take care of our community first, right? The people are here. Sorry, to be a lot louder. So to me, like the fact that the state is demanding that we build X amount, right, without letting us determine the rate that we expand, is concerning because I think geographically, not from here, but when we had the big fire in Big Basin, I was experienced with, forest fires and couldn't spread past, 17. And if something like that happens, our landscape is extremely different. So I feel like the state demanding that Santa Cruz itself expands at a huge rate is irresponsible when you think about the only way out is 17. God forbid Big Basin had, jumped 17 and taken out, the whole area here. So that to me is my biggest concern, is that they are not thinking about let's expand in other parts of California. And yeah, I get it. Santa Cruz is awesome. I mean, we moved all the way from the East Coast here, but I think there's also some logic that we need to think about.
So there are no climate havens. We just saw that with Hurricane Helene. Ashland, North Carolina was supposed to be a climate haven, unlikely to be impacted by storms that decide a catastrophic hurricane come through and decimate the community. Every community in California is seeing these kinds of requirement increases in housing. Everyone. Santa Cruz is not unique. Just because we're the most expensive does not mean we got necessarily. I mean, the whole Monterey Bay area region, I can't remember exactly the number, but it was 30 to 40,000 units. I mean, Salinas has to plan for 8,000 new units. I mean, even like Sand City, they're like, where the heck are we going to put 300 new units? We're like 1 square mile and half of it's beach. Every single community is seeing these kinds of requirements. And you're right, if we didn't put it in any of the high fire zone areas. That's why when it came to where we were going to put the required number from the state, we said, well, Soquel Drive seems like it's better than Ben Lomond. I guess we have a sewer line here, and it's not right next to where the fire would go through. So I don't know. If you got an alternative suggestion, I'm happy to hear it.
Hi, Manny. So I have a quick question, and it's regarding the workforce. How are we going to make sure that the people renting over there are going to be people working here? So is there a process that will be implemented? Because I think I've seen somewhere that on Capitol Road, there was a housing development there, and 40 units were specifically reserved. Sorry, my English is not. So for I think 40 units were reserved for the workforce. So how about the other units, and who is there? So for that development, can you please extend on the process and who is going to be there? Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is, how do we ensure that the affordable units go to people who are already working or living and working in our community? And it's true that the 1500 Capitol Road, where the new health clinic, and Dientes, over by Coffeetopia there, their units do include requirements or some number set aside for live work in Santa Cruz, and even in live oak provisions. So you have to either live, some of them are for either live or work, and some of them, the first priority is for live and work in the community already. I actually need to drill down on this and see if those requirements can be put into place for these units as well, or if there's anything that limits our ability to do so, maybe because of the federal income tax credits, but I'll certainly see if we can and champion that we do if it's at all possible.
requirements for living and working in the county, and having that be an application process that, in addition to the incomes. So I appreciate that you've answered that with the previous person who spoke. But I also want to ask about parcels on the south of Highway 1. Why in Live Oak, on the south side of Highway 1, are there no parcels that we know of that are being slated for any of this workforce housing? Everybody's calling it affordable housing, which it is. However, when I spoke to somebody at the planning department, they referred to it as workforce housing. And to me, workforce housing would mean you work, you live in your community. You provide a service to back to your community, your doctors, your teachers, your service workers, people having a place to be able to afford to live and work in the community. And that's what this whole thing is touting. And again, why is it all being on Soquel quarter? In an area of 1 mile, we have over 750 plus units that are being built from Thurber to 41st Avenue. And that's a lot of units. And I would like to see the wealth being spread to the south side of Highway 1.
Don't worry, it will be. The Kaiser property, the Kaiser site that fell through was originally zoned for housing, and when that project was being considered for the Kaiser site, everyone said, but what about the housing? Well, it's going to be housing, people. It'll be about 100 townhomes. That's what it was zoned for, and that's what it's going to be. It'll be those 1,800 square foot for sale units. So there's a parcel right next to Chanticleer Park, between that ministerial overlay, that will certainly get some kind of apartments there. There's large parcels on 7th Avenue and 17th. I mean, we're not a big county. We don't have a big area, but 4,634 units. And so pretty much any parcel that's not developed could see a project like this. And why Soquel Drive was the best bus service in the county. And whether or not people ride the bus, we can't control. That's a private decision. We're trying to make it as easy as possible.
I have questions about the secret and its applicability. So where is the discretionary decision being made associated with this where secret would get triggered? Is that the board of supervisors?
Planning commission.
Planning, okay. And then are you expecting, so I guess there are 4 outcomes of secret. Notice of exemption, neg deck, mitigated neg deck, and EAR. Do you have a sense of where they might go with this? What's your guess? They being the builders.
Don't know for.
I honestly don't know, because as I said, it's maybe possible that they'd be able to piggyback off of a former environmental impact report that could end up in a neg deck, or something like that. Or, I mean, no, short answer, no. I don't know. And neither does our planning department at this very moment in time.
So if they try to piggyback, they're probably going to do an NOE, a notice of exemption, saying that they think the ER covers it, and then other people, public, somebody could push back and say, no, it needs to be at least a negative declaration. And so that seems, it probably couldn't stop the whole thing, but it could arguably change some of the characteristics. So, all right, thank you.
I don't think this is something we've been addressed, and it's just a minor concern, but most of these projects I see being built, I think they're being built by construction firms, correct me if I'm wrong, over the hill, and I'm not sure they're hiring local help, but I'm not sure the local help is capable of the scale of these projects. Do you have any thoughts about how they can't control who they hire to do the building?
So I'd have to checked, some of the state laws actually do require union labor to do the construction. In fact, the one that 41st and Soquel is taking advantage of, AB 2011, does require union labor, and so I would have to see if there's any similar things in the laws this is development taking advantage of that would require me to use certain type of labor. So I'm not aware of any. Dan?
I've been up here once, I know.
You get like a lightning round.
Just give me 10 minutes, that's all I need to do. Actually, first of all, I think we all really need to understand as best we can in our limited ways that this is really being mandated by the state. And these guys are doing the best they can to mitigate this as much as they can. So just keep that in mind when we start talking about who we blame here. It's not necessarily on the local level. The other part of it is, I'm wondering, now this process, state review takes place about every 8 years, is that right? Something like that? So here we are with, what, 8,000 units mandated for this 8-year cycle for the county, give or take. So let's fast forward 8 years. Now here we are again, and you talked about all the places on the south side of the highway and all that, which is fine. But everybody's faced with the same process again 8 years from now, trying to find 8,000 units, 10,000 units, depending on what the state decides we need to have to serve our population. So these guys are stuck between a rock and a hard place. No matter how you look at it, they're stuck. And the only thing we can do is, like one gentleman said, we all need to keep our noses on the wheel, so to speak, be more alert to what's happening in Sacramento, and I'm not a politician, and try to mitigate what's happening to our personal rights as far as property owners are concerned in the state. But again, thank you, Mama, because I know it takes a hell of a lot of work from everybody just to protect what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate the understanding. I appreciate you all coming out here and staying till 8:30. I will continue to stick around to a close the formal meeting. We have everyone's email address. I'm committed to making sure you're informed going forward. And you can also always reach out to me directly. Firstus.district at Santa Cruz County, ca.gov goes to myself, Jamie, and Christina, and so most people get a quick response that way. But we do all work right next to each other, and so I'll get that eventually. All right, thank you everyone for coming out tonight.